This is your host, Arjang Abraham Zendehdal. Today is our third show in a special series on mysticism.
Mystics are deeply spiritual people who seek to live a divine life. Mystics have existed throughout history around the world from various religions, ethnicities, and backgrounds. Whichever tradition they follow, the mystics have been the most truly joyous people I have met. They've been the brightest lights I've come across. Today, I would like to share their wisdom with you. We'll discover universal principles and lessons from Sufism that can elevate and enhance our lives. We'll get to explore the contributions of the great Sufi mystics like Hafez and Rumi and see how Sufism exists today. Journey with us to explore the mysticism and wisdom of Sufism. My guest is Mr. Freydoon Rassouli, a Sufi mystic, award-winning author, internationally renowned artist, and creativity guru. Mr. Freydoon Rassouli extensively studied and experienced mysticism since childhood, whirling with his beloved Sufi uncle. Mr. Rassouli has published over 24 books on mysticism, poetry, and art. His most popular books include Rumi Revealed and Fusion Art. His book, Hafez, Wisdom of Madness, recently won the gold medal for Best Poetry Book in 2022. His Sufi Wisdom Oracle Cards was the winner of the Best Oracle Deck in the International Tarot Foundation 2020 Carta Awards. His upcoming book is Soul's Journey. Mr. Rassouli is also one of my all-time favorite artists, not just living, but of all time. That's a pretty big deal. And I have a fine arts background. He is the founder of a unique artistic movement called Fusion Art. His stunning artworks have been exhibited and published worldwide. He's also the artist behind several major murals. Much of the inspiration for Rassouli's art comes from mysticism. As a creativity guru, Mr. Rassouli lectures at universities and cultural institutions and conducts creativity and painting workshops called Fusion Art Play Shops. I've been honored to interview Mr. Rassouli multiple times in the past, and I'm so happy to welcome him to today's show. Welcome to the show, Mr. Rassouli.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
Of course, of course. It's so nice to see you. It's so nice to see your glow and to be with you. And if you want to check out Mr. Rassouli's art, which is really stunning, you can go to rassouli.com, RASSOULI.com, and check it out. It's a really beautiful artwork that you'll experience. So let's go ahead and get right into it. What is Sufism?
It's a way of life. Sufi wisdom is the wisdom that has come from 12th century on to today. And it's been sort of like Zen, is a practical way of living the way that we're supposed to live. It's individual because I have my own way of the way I'm supposed to live. Somebody else have their own. As a result, Sufi wisdom is not something that you can put it in a box and say, these are the Sufi doctrine. The different Sufis, different periods have said things that a lot of times negates other Sufis' words. It's all basically the way that you want to live and you live. The main thing about Sufi way of life is that God is not out there. God is within you, and your power is what makes things happen.
So God is within us. That makes sense. Now, God is also outside of us, because if it's God is within me and God is within you, so it's also outside of us and inside of us. It's both, right?
If God is everywhere, that means it's in us and outside of us. I give you a little story about that, about Rumi Shams.
Sure.
Shams is known as a major Sufi that traveled town to town, basically on foot.
Around what era are we talking about approximately?
We're talking about the late 12th century, 13th century.
Gotcha.
So Shams was from Tabriz, and his whole concept was to make known to people that God is everywhere. Is not in Mecca, or is not in, a certain temple or any of those. God is everywhere. So anywhere that you are, you can have the connection with God. One time, actually, he saw a group of people who were going by as he was traveling on foot. And he asked them where they were going. He asked the leader where they were going. And the leader said, we're going to Mecca, to the house of God. And Shams said, how much money are you going to spend to go there? And he says, something like 1,000 dirham or whatever at the time. And Shams says, why don't you give me that money and just walk around me for 7 times?
which may have been considered sacrilegious by some, right? Maybe.
Exactly.
Right.
Of course it is. Yeah. But, this is the truth about house of God. And when he met Rumi, 13th century leader of Islamic religion, who had studied all the Islamic books and everything that you can imagine, and was living in Konya, one day on a Friday, after he did his Friday prayer, he walked, and his followers were walking behind him through the bazaar. And as they were walking, he saw somebody coming the opposite direction. He greeted Rumi, and Rumi asked him, well, you come from far away. Where you come from? And Shams said, I come from the house of love. Rumi says, oh, you're coming from Mecca. Welcome. Tell us about Mecca. And Shams said, no, I come from the heart. This was something a little bit strange for Rumi to hear. So he sort of ignored him and just continued. And Shams jumped in front of him again, and he said, I have a question. And Rumi said, what's the question? And Shams said, who was right, Muhammad or Bastami? Rumi said, I don't care about Bastami, but Muhammad was the prophet of God. So whatever he said was right, because he was the word of God. And Shams said, then why Muhammad said, God, forgive me for not having recognized your greatness? And Bastami said, pray to me.
Who was Bastami, by the way?
Bastami is one of the leaders, very important figure in the Sufi movement. He's a leader. He's actually, much of his influence on you can see it on Rumi, Shams, on Hafez, on many of those. This was really the main belief system that he had, was that God is you, me, everywhere. Flowers, animals, everything is God. And that was causing a lot of problem with the Islamic mullahs, because in this case, based on his theory, God was the devil as well.
Or was it? Yeah, God was the source of everything, right?
He was the source of everything. So God, the devil, was in God as well. And
the God was in the devil, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Or the vice versa. It could be anyway, but it's the same thing. So that caused a lot of problem as well. But when Shams said that, why Bastami said, pray to me, this became a thought for Rumi. So he waited for a few minutes, and he pulled Shams, and they sat on the ledge of one of those stores. and they started talking, and that talk led into a relationship that they had for a 4 month, very close relationship, nothing sexual, but it was very close relationship. They constantly communicated. And the first thing that Shams asked Rumi was to throw his books in the well. And for Rumi, that was very difficult because those books were not printed. They were all handwritten, manuscripts. So he had to throw everything in the well. Knowledge is out. What you need to develop is wisdom. And this is what the whole concept of Sufi wisdom comes from. It's not Sufi knowledge, it's Sufi wisdom. That's why it's different on different people because of their own experiences.
So different people experience it differently. Now, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Sufism has been around for how long? So it's the mystical soul of Islam, right? It's the mysticism of Islam. So it's been around at least how long? We're talking about 1,200 years. What's the history of it, would you say?
I would say about 1,100 years.
1,100 years.
And it was recognized as Sufi. Sufi, right. Actually, it's interesting. Sufi means somebody who wears a wool clothes. Yeah, it was cold, and wool clothes was something that people were given to the Sufis. Now, Sufis did not have, at the beginning in there, as they developed, they did not deal with money. Sufi lived in a temple, in a place that was built by people in their town. They lived in there. They had their rooms in there, and people would feed them, give them clothes as a exchange for being spiritual advisor to people. So they were, in a way, they were like a psychologist.
Coaches. They were the original coaches and psychologists. You shared with us that one of the tenets of Sufism is that God is everywhere, inside us and outside of us, which is actually a mystical tenet in all the mystical traditions I know: Kabbalah, Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, etc. Let's go to the other principles of Sufism. I would love to hear from you. What are the other principles of Sufism?
It's the self-realization, self-recognition. And the way of Sufi is a little bit different than the way of the self-realization that we were used to in the Western world in the 20th century. See, self-recognition is to know who you are, who your capabilities spiritually and physically is. To gain that knowledge, one of my practices at the early age was, when I say I, who is that I'm representing? For a whole month, I had to write down what I mean by I. When I say I'm hungry, who is that I? When I say I love you, who is that I? When I say I don't get it, who is that guy, that I? So the whole 1 month practice was the recognition of the self. Who is, as Rumi says, "Kis dar dide ke az dide man mi nigarad?" Who is in my eyes that sees through my eyes? It's that who is the one that you're looking for. That who is the one that you want to find through, again, practice. That's why I keep on going back to wisdom rather than knowledge. Knowledge doesn't mean a damn thing. Knowledge is in your cell phone, and you have any knowledge that you want. You don't have to know anything. Everything is there, much better than you can ever imagine. But wisdom is what we need. Putting the knowledge into personal practice.
Hmm.
This is what we need.
Now you're mentioning the I, which I'm really pleased that you're bringing it up. So someone could be listening and say, well, I know who I am. I am Arjang, or I am, a son, or I'm a human, or I am happy or sad, or whatever the words are. And I'm sure you mean something deeper than that. So what do you mean by I? Could you expound that more?
Okay. I is not really one individual. See, I is just like God, is infinite. So there is infinite I's that I represent. Let me give you an example of a good I. What is a good I? See, we have 4 attributes or characteristics that it is within us. One is nafs ammare, one is nafs hasane. One is the
Soul, I think you mean.
Yeah, but it's more than that. I'm trying to express it in a way that it would be clear. One is the spirit of good, having a good spirit.
Mm-hmm.
One is having a bad spirit.
Okay, right. The good inclination or the bad inclination, I think, is another way to say it. Yeah. Or the spirit, good or bad spirit, right?
Here are 2 of them, okay? So, and then the other 2 are the knowledgeable or wise spirit versus reactionary spirit. So these are 4 different spirits that is within us. As we increase one, see, there are 2 pairs. Good and bad are a pair, and wisdom and reaction are another pair. So if you increase your wisdom, your knowledge goes down because you don't need to use your knowledge anymore. If you use knowledge, you don't use your wisdom because you're going to reflect on what you have learned or what has come from the books, not from what you have practiced. So there are these 2. So what happens is, if you have the wisdom, if I hit you, you're going to start thinking, why did he hit me? What is in his mind? What is it all about? But if I don't have that and I just react, you hit me, I'm going to hit you back. So as I reduce the power of reaction, I can increase the power of wisdom. Same thing happens with good and bad. As I increase the good in myself, I'm reducing the bad in myself. So these 2 pairs are against each other. So an individual, when you say I, you represent these 4 characteristics that makes you. So when you pay attention to it, when I say, I want to water the plants, it's a good thing that you do. So you're representing the good characteristic, okay? And then, of course, there's the opposite, that I want to do this. I want to hit this guy, or I want to kill this one, or I want to destroy this. That's the negative one. So as you build on one more and more, as you become aware of it, and you build on it, then you can reduce the other one more and more to reach the point of really being a good-spirited person.
So the way you're describing it, so you're saying that the eyes, you're describing it, represents different parts of the psyche of the soul, and it's up to us which one we're feeding. It reminds me of this Native American quote. This Native American chief is asked by his students to share wisdom, and he says, there are two wolves within me. One wolf is loving and kind and truthful and happy, and the other one is hateful and angry and mean and sniping. And the students nod their head and they say, Master, which one wins? He says, the one that I feed. Right?
Exactly.
So it's kind of reminds me of that story. You're saying there's different aspects of us. It's up to us which one we feed. I think there's also a deeper I, right, Mr. Rassouli? Like the inner God, the infinite aspect of ourselves, the undefinable I, correct? So there's parts of us that's definable, and then there's the undefinable I. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's why I went into this I after we described what God means.
Okay, so we have the undefinable I, and then you have like the personality parts which you're describing. Okay, got it. Got it.
Yes.
So I believe also Sufism emphasizes the development of presence and love, like being present and love especially. Is that accurate? Am I getting it correctly?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, one of the famous, or maybe the first female Sufi was Rabia. You pronounce it in English, Rabia. And Rabia she lived around in the 8th century. And one day they saw her with holding a bucket of water in one hand and a tray of fire in the other, and was just running around. And they asked her what she wants to do. What is she doing with that? And she said that I want to pour water in the fire of hell, and I want to burn the whole concept of heaven. So I would feel God without fear of hell or the wish to go to heaven. So that's another aspect of Sufi doctrine, where it eliminates any kind of a future or the past. It goes back to the moment now. So I'm not going to do good things because I want to go to heaven. And I'm not going to do bad things because I'm worried to go to hell. I just do good things because this is the way I am. This is the way I develop myself. This is the way you went through this I and reached that thing. One of the problems we have in the Western world is trying to do things. In Sufi doctrine, you don't try to do anything. You don't try anything. You just do them. Like one day you're gonna, clean the floors. Next day you're gonna wash the windows. Next day you're gonna wash this. Every time you do this, it's not about trying to do that. See, what happens is by trying, we don't do it all the way wholeheartedly because we just try. If it didn't work, I do it again. If it didn't work, I do it again. But when I know that this is the only time that I'm doing it, then I gotta do it. I do it. So the whole trying is another thing that becomes very important in the Sufi doctrine. We don't try things. We do them.
Try implies struggle, right? When you tell someone try to raise your hand, they get confused. They're like, huh? What? There's another famous mystic who said, don't try, just do, right? It's Master Yoda from Star Wars. He says, do or do not. No, he says, there is no try. Do or do not. Right?
Definitely.
Very good. I am aware that a tenet of Sufism is developing unconditional divine love. Correct?
Yes.
So please share with us about that, and especially what Rumi shares with us about that. Rumi is one of the great Sufi mystics and one of the greatest poets of all time. I think he's been recognized as one of or the best poet of all time, an amazing poet. So let's go ahead and connect the two. What do we mean by unconditional divine love, and what does Rumi say about it?
To love something or to love somebody is to give your whole heart to it. Rumi has one of his anecdotes relating to love is that a lover knocks at the beloved's door, and the beloved said, "Who's there?" And the lover says, "It's I." And the beloved says, "Go away. There's no place in this house for you and I." So the man goes, leaves, and he is meditating for a whole year, trying to figure out how he can get into the beloved's house. After about a year goes back, knocks at the door again, and the beloved says, "Who is there?" And he says, "It's you." And she opens the door. So this is really what Rumi looks into as love. Love is to give yourself into somebody else. And I give you examples of it. It might sound weird, but the examples are simple. See, when I paint, when I start to paint, I'm in the zone of, okay, I'm painting and I'm thinking and listening to music, and I'm doing all kinds of things, arranging things, rearranging things, all of that. And then I start painting. To paint, instead of knowing what I'm doing or thinking what I'm doing, I just get a rag, piece of rag, put it in a paint, one of the colors, and just go right on the canvas with that. Let's say I got blue, and I just go like that with that rag on the canvas. And then I put that rag back in the blue, and I get another piece of rag, I get a red, and with that red, I go on the canvas again, and I put a little red in here. I don't go all over the blue. Some red in here, some red in there, mix some red in here. Now I have blue and red on the canvas. First blue was the king. Now they're the two of them together. So there's the blue and there's the red. They start playing with each other. So blue throws some blue behind the red on one side. Red pulls in some more colors under the blue in this other side. It's just like a game that they're playing. These two are just playing. Sometimes the blue gets help from yellow, and the red gets help from green. They just get help, and they're still playing with each other. There is no thought, there is no idea, there's nothing. In that process, I am one with the canvas. I am not a painter painting on the canvas. The canvas is the field of play, and it's all I'm doing in play. Now I cannot think of anything. I cannot hear anything. I'm in a zone that I cannot even explain how I feel. So in that zone, I'm just playing. As the play goes on, at some point, suddenly I become aware that I am painting on the canvas. Now what happens is just a process of making love. In that process, I sit in front of the canvas that is all got the paint on it. Just like a lover in front of the beloved, and I want to find out what my beloved wants me to do. It's not me deciding, oh, I want to do it that way, or I want to do it this way, or I want to make a bird in here, or I want to make this. No, what is the canvas asking me? Where does the canvas want me to touch? Where does canvas wants me to add? Where does the whole thing becomes a process of the beloved guiding me, not me doing it on the canvas. In that process of beloved guiding me, guess what happens? I don't exist anymore. The beloved is the one who exists and wants these to happen. So in that process, at that moment, I am in love. I am making love. I am loving. That is true love. When you are not existing, that's when love takes place. It's just like a climax. In that zone that you are, you don't know whether you're male or female, or whether you're old or young or big or small. These don't mean a damn thing. You're completely surrendered to this energy that we call love. So love, to begin with, is not, so when I say that I love you, it's wrong. It's wrong to say I love you, because I am separate from you. Yeah, I'm infatuated with you. I desire you, all of these other things you can say. But if you want to say I love you, it doesn't make sense.
So what do we say? We love we?
We are love.
So what I'm experiencing from you, which is really beautiful, it's nice to be in your body in a way as you describe how you paint. It was a beautiful experience that you shared with our audience and myself to really experience that. It's really wonderful and stunning. Feels like you basically go into your essence and you become one with everything. So you're connecting oneness with love, which is very profound. In Hebrew, the numerical value of love is 13, and the numerical value of one is also 13. So it's really beautiful that you're sharing that. It's, you know, I'm connecting it to different mystical understandings that I've learned. It's that oneness. So you're saying being in love with someone is being one with them, and then you lose the sense of self. It's just oneness. It's why your paintings are so beautiful. It's, if you look at his paintings, it's on Rassouli.com, RASSOULI.com. I can see that you make love to your paintings. It has that sense. And it's not abstract art. Those of you who are thinking it's just abstract art, it's not. It's not just paint on a canvas. He's actually extremely skilled. You are extremely skilled with drawing realism also, and surreal, etc. It seems like you're tapping into your superconscious. It reminds me of Thomas Edison and other brilliant people. It's beyond thinking. It's a download, right? It's like divine download. Something just comes through you and does what it needs to do.
I have started writing another book that I'm doing, my little notes on it constantly. And I titled it Red Consciousness.
Red consciousness.
Red Consciousness.
Is this a communist manifesto? What is this? I thought I left the beast back in Russia. What is red consciousness? I'm sure you don't mean it's communist manifesto. What are you referring to?
That actually, that red is everywhere. See, we have the darkness and we have the light. We have black and we have white. These two are against each other. We have the positive and negative. They're the two against each other. So you have the darkness and you have the light. Now, when darkness comes into light, what happens? Imagine darkness is nighttime and it comes to light, which is daytime. That transition of dark into light is a red color. It's a red color. So we as a human being...
How is it red color? I don't get that.
Like sunset, like sunrise. The sky becomes red when the light comes in. The light against darkness is the color is red in the universe. Because same thing happens with the flames. Same thing. You can practice and see what I'm talking about. So this red consciousness is a consciousness that brings the dark and light together. Dark is the body, light is the spirit. Body without spirit doesn't mean a damn thing. Spirit without body is just everywhere, doesn't have any form. So the red consciousness is bringing the darkness into light. So this is the wisdom that I'm working on, how we can bring the darkness into light. How do we go through that transformation, which I call a red transformation? This is what we are. Each one of us is a red being.
So you're talking about the oneness consciousness or the unity consciousness, I think you might be referring to. Is that what you mean? Unity consciousness?
I would say unity and oneness pretty much the same to me. Yeah. It's just saying that it's not unity consciousness, it's actually transformation consciousness. See, transformation is the essence of creativity. Transformation is God. Transformation is what changes chaos to order. Transformation is what brings darkness into light, or light into darkness. That transformation is what we are. We are transformation. When we were born, we did not exist the way that we are developed. Our parents, our mother and father, built a box inside my mother's womb. It was a box. And the box started developing, got to a size that it was bigger than the workshop that it was being built in. So it came out. The box came out. It's not the human being coming out. The box came out. The body came out. The organs came out. The moment they came out, light, God, love went inside them with the first breath. The breath of God is what made us human being. Otherwise, we're just a box. That's why we bury it 6 feet under, because it's just a box. Breath of God, breath of divine, when it enters the box, becomes human being. That entrance of the breath of life, breath of God, that entrance determines our greatness. If our body is thick, it's harder to enter. If the skin is thinner, there's much more air in it. It's just like a balloon that you put air in it. Let's say the soul is the air that you put in the balloon. When it's not in the balloon, it's everywhere, connected to everything. But when it's in the balloon, it's in its own limitation of the body, of the skin. Okay, so the skin, if the skin is too thick, is the rubber too thick, it cannot blow it up to larger sizes. But the thinner that the skin becomes, the more expansion of the soul develops in it.
Now, what do you mean by thickness and thinness? Because you're not being literal, thin, thick skin. What do you mean by thinness?
Yeah, thank you for catching that, because I speak metaphorically most of the time, and that some people get confused with it. You see, there is attachment to the body. You have no way of getting separate from the attachments that you have. Begin from your clothing, physical attachments to the body, but then there is the mental or spiritual attachment to the body, like your love for your children. It's an attachment. Children are attached to you spiritually, even not there together with you like your clothes, but they're attached to you. So that attachment to the body, when it becomes more and more and more, the body becomes thick. There's too much attachment to it. Too much attachment builds up a being, that is
way down.
Exactly. So the spirit cannot expand in that form that is so thick with attachment. So to really get rid of the attachments, you cannot. You cannot get rid of your children. They're your attachment. But what you can do is, instead of them sitting on your shoulder, you can be with them, not just have them as a weight that makes your body thicker. Know that these are a part of divine love that I'm receiving in this life.
What you're referring to, the way I conceptualize it, is you're saying we got to be aware of our attachments, dependency on our body, on physicality, on materialism. Extreme attachment can become addiction, even to alcohol, drugs, money, things that weigh us down. And the more we're attached to things, the more we're dependent on them for our fulfillment, the more our skin becomes thicker, we become heavy, we become weighed down, our soul is not able to shine. So the process of transformation and growth is really letting go of those dependencies and attachments, becoming independent. And then when you're saying the child is next to me, that's a process of interdependence. We connect to things without being attached to them. And that's where real love plays in. We're connected to life. We have money, but we're not the slave of money. We're the master of it. We use it, but we're not attached or weighed down by it. And therefore our soul can shine. I think I'm getting you. Am I on the right track there, Mr. Rassouli?
Definitely.
You actually wrote a book called Hafez, Wisdom of Madness, right? And people say, what do you mean wisdom of madness? But really, in order to thrive in life, you got to be a little crazy, right? You're showing it on the video, Hafez, Wisdom of Madness. There's got to be a little bit of craziness. Now, we're not talking about mental illness craziness. We're talking about divine craziness. What do you mean by wisdom of madness? Please share with us. If you have a poem by Hafez, the concept, we have a few minutes to wrap up the show, please.
Okay, I'm going to read the beginning of the introduction to the book in here. And that tells you all, basically. That's one of his verses. Call me the reigning sovereign of confusion and chaos, for I am the biggest fool in the entire world. That is the essence of who Hafez is and what the wisdom of madness comes about. See, the wisdom that is influenced by others is not a wisdom. It's a knowledge that you gain. The true wisdom is to surrender to the flow. So you would be always prepared, knowing that I have the capability to face my challenges. That knowing that you have the capability to face your challenges gives you a crazy idea. You do things that people say, oh, don't do that. It's a wrong thing you're doing. Because you have faith in that you have the capability to do it. That development of that faith needs your madness, which means not to sit down and calculate things, not compare things. See, that the work of mind or the work of brain is to bring together the two, while heart has already unified the two.
So what you're sharing is that we require a little bit of divine madness, super rationality, maybe we can call it. It's a way of going beyond our limitations, because sometimes the mind can limit us. So that divine madness is a way to go beyond the rationality. And people who listen to this show, or you've studied mysticism, whether it's Zen or Kabbalah or Sufism or other ones, it sometimes sounds crazy, but there's a logical crazy to it, right? That needs to be really savored and appreciated. Well, I'd love to speak with you more. There's so much. We just started, right? We just started opening the book and discussing Sufism and how it works. So please share with us about your upcoming book, Soul's Journey. It's coming out in a few months, correct?
Right, in February, actually. Yeah.
Great. And people can connect to you how? What is your website, please, Mr. Rassouli? I know you have a bunch. How about Rassouli.com? Would that be the good main one to give out?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So Mr. Rassouli's website is Rassouli.com. That's Rassouli.com. Again, Rassouli.com. And Mr. Rassouli is a world-renowned artist. He's the founder of the movement called Fusion Art. He does workshops. He calls them painting play shops. And if you actually look at his paintings, you'll understand what he means by mysticism. It's the incarnation of mystical concepts in painting. It's again, Rassouli.com. He's one of my favorite all-time painters, really amazing work. So do you have a remaining 10, 20-second thought you want to leave us with before we wrap everything up?
Mind constantly makes mistakes. Your thought constantly, your calculations constantly makes mistakes, but your heart never makes a mistake. Follow your heart, because that's the connection to the source. That's the connection to God. That is God.
Follow your heart, follow the deeper intuition and knowingness. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on the show, Mr. Rassouli. Thank you. And I would like to thank our technician, Mr. Jesse Sanchez. Thank you to my lovely wife, Nicole, co-producer of this show. You can connect with me, Arjang, at dreamality.com. That's DREAMALITY.com. Again, DREAMALITY.com, dreamality.com. Let's end with a couple of quotes by the great Sufi mystic Rumi, who says, "You were born with wings. Why prefer to crawl through life? Stop acting so small. You are the universe in ecstatic motion. Be well, and God bless."